Today we're going to learn how to use some inbuilt image editing effects in Adobe Photoshop CC 2015. Now the best thing about this is they are inbuilt, so you don't have to add any plugins, you don't have to mess around or add anything in, and it's a really good way to edit quite a few images in the same way if that's what you wanted to do. And it's just looking up the 3D files or the 3D lookup table, it just looks up the colors and then it just makes a selection from the drop down file. So might sound a little bit confusing, but I'll show you how it works because it's really simple. So just drag and drop the image that you want to use into Photoshop, and I'm using this image which I took myself just while I was out and about messing around the other day, just out and about my local area. So it's an alright image taken with the Sony HX300, but it could have some improvements. It could have a lot of improvements. It could have had a flower in it to start off, but you know, this is what we do. We just take pictures of stuff and edit them in Photoshop for whatever reason because we enjoy it. Right, anyway, go to your adjustment layers and select color lookup, and you've got the 3D LUT file here, which stands for a 3D lookup table, which is not actually 3D, it's 2D, but it's just called a 3D lookup table. So you've got a list to choose from here, and what I'd recommend doing is just selecting to strip and then just scroll down on your mouse and just work your way through them and having a look at which one works well for you. So just crisp winter, crisp warm looks nice. Crisp winter obviously makes it colder. Drop blues, edgy amber is a really nice effect as well. Fall colors really nice too, and just have a little look through, but I want to do something a little bit more dramatic and see if this works out. So I'm going to go back up to which one, bleach bypass, just to do something a bit more dramatic. Get rid of that because I don't need it anymore, and firstly just reduce the opacity down to say about 40% maybe. Yep, I say about 40%. That looks pretty good. I'd say I might go a bit lower, 35, and then hit OK, and then add a layer mask on top, and then invert the layer mask by pressing Ctrl and I to get rid of it, so it's just the original image again. Then hit D on the keyboard to change your black and white to black and white, so white is your foreground, black is your background. And then because the layer mask is filled in black, have your brush tool selected, pressing B, and with white you want to paint over the area where you want to bring the layer mask through. So if you need to switch between black and white, just hit X, and using your brush tool and the white selected, you can just paint in the areas that you want to change with your 3D lookup table. So if I just go around these leaves a little bit, I'm just creating a mask of this area that I want to affect, and because it's a pretty soft edge brush that I'm using, it's not going to affect the edges too much, so you don't ever have to worry about going into too much detail or trying to get, you know, in between every leaf. As long as you go in the sort of area, it's not going to make too much of a difference. It doesn't have to be perfect. So that was pretty good. If you need to reduce the brush size, just use the brackets under the plus and return key, and just brush around the edges and just bring in your effect. So that's one thing that you can do with the 3D lookup tables, just brushing in and out. As you can see, there's the effect that I've just added to the leaves. And now the best thing about this is I'll be able to adjust the background while keeping the sort of the leaves the same. So it's a really good way to separate your images up if you want to edit one thing and then edit another thing. It's a really good way to use masks. But the other thing you can do with these 3D lookup tables is you can change the blend mode of them as well. So they act sort of like layers, the adjustment layers. So well, they are layers technically, but they're good because you can change the blend mode of the actual effect. So with this effect that I've got now, if I wanted to change the blend mode, say for example to overlay, you can see the difference. If I just turn it off and then turn it back on, it's made a little bit of a change. So these are all different types of effects that you can just create really quickly and really simply just by using 3D lookup tables. Now if I wanted to get rid of this and just start again, I go to my adjustment layer and then select color lookup, and on my 3D LUT for this one I want to select, say, let's go down to something a bit softer or something that's a bit more natural. Say I wanted to use the Fuji F125 code out 23931, and then just get rid of that, and then say I'll turn the opacity down a little bit, and that's the effect that I'm going to use for my photos. Obviously it's not, I'm just showing you for the purposes of the video, but if this was going to be the effect that I'd use on multiple images, using a color lookup adjustment layer is really good because it affects all of the layers. So if I minimize Photoshop and drag another image into it, so here's an image that I took of a daisy. This one actually has got a flower in, which is good, and hit enter or press the check mark to place it. Then the color lookup adjustment layer automatically will add to this image. So if I turn it off, there's the original, and then turn it back on again, you can see that it's added the color lookup adjustment layer, and the layer below is exactly the same. So if I was just doing a couple of images and I wanted them to look the same, this is the way that I do it, and just stack 4 or 5 in there. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. I hope it makes image editing a little bit easier for you. Please like, share, and don't be a pencil, and subscribe to my channel.